好，
大家好
Chinese Class 101.
Hey everybody, welcome back to ChineseClass101.com. I'm Amber.
大家好，我是 Victor.
And today is our absolute beginner lesson, season 1, lesson 10.
Yep, and it's still about eating.
Well, now it's kind of post-eating because it's asking for the all-important bill
The bill.
and calling for the waiter.
So, waiter, the bill. It may sound a little strange in English, right? Because you never call that out.
Yeah, that's the thing. This lesson is going to teach you about Chinese restaurant etiquette.
Right.
And that kind of begins with a lesson on how to yell. It's actually the truth. You have to.
You actually do it because people don't come to check out on you. You have to let them know you need something.
Yeah, you're going to have to learn to holler if you want to get some waiter action.
It's part of the restaurant energy flow.
Yeah. So in this lesson, you're going to learn how to call the waiter over and how to ask for the bill. And also we'll learn some money words as well.
This conversation takes place in a restaurant.
Yeah, and it's between the waiter and a customer. Okay, so we're going to listen to the dialogue, but one thing we want to add, just to remind everybody, don't know if you know, but if you have a 3G phone for basic and premium members, you can see the lesson notes in your favorite browser on your phone.
So stop by ChineseClass101.com to find out more.
Yeah, and now let's listen to the conversation.
服务员，买单。
您好，18元
哇，真便宜。
，18块钱。
重复一次，慢速。
One more time, a little slower.
服务员，买单。
您好，18元
哇，真便宜。
，18块钱。
重复一次，加英文翻译。
One more time with the English.
服务员，买单。
Waiter, the bill.
您好，18元。
Hello, 18 renminbi.
哇，真便宜。
Wow, so cheap.
18块钱。
18 renminbi. Okay, so I don't know if our dialogue, if he really yelled it loud enough, but you'll know whether you yelled it loud enough if they came over to your table.
Right. You know what it is, though? To ask for a bill, I think this part of the restaurant etiquette shows a lot about Chinese culture because if they give you the bill like in the West,
Yeah.
that's not quite acceptable in Chinese culture because it's almost like a sign you're trying to get the customer out.
Right.
And it's not very hospitable to do that. So the customer usually takes the role of asking for the bill and say, I'm ready to leave.
Yeah. And in fact, this yelling for the waiter is going to be very high frequency language because even to order, you generally have to kind of yell at the waiter to come over. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the vocab for this lesson.
And now, the vocab section.
服务员
Waiter.
服务员服务员买单
To bring the check at a restaurant.
买单买单18
18.
18元
Main denomination of the renminbi.
元哇
Wow.
哇真
Really?
真便宜
Inexpensive.
便宜快
Measure word for money.
快钱
Money.
钱 So let's look at the vocab for this lesson, starting with the word you need to call out.
For waiter, which is?
服务员服务员 Fu is second tone, Wu is fourth tone, and Yuan is second tone.
Right. So you're going to probably need to call this out when you A, need to order, B, need the bill, or anything else in between for that matter.
Right.
And one thing of note is that I lived in Shanghai before, and it's very common for people, if the waiter is actually a female, a waitress, people often will yell 小姐, which means miss.
Miss.
However, this is some word of caution because you will hear this said in the maybe southern parts of China, but in the northern parts, considered quite derogatory, isn't it, Victor?
Right.
What does it mean?
Because miss or 小姐 sometimes it means kind of like female who perform,
Like I heard it meant prostitute or
yeah,
something.
basically that.
Lady of the
it's
night.
from a long time ago. My mom always cautions me to never say 小姐, but every time I'm in China, I say it. So
Yeah.
it all depends how you use it, right? It does mean miss,
Yeah.
which is a very formal way of addressing a young female. So it's not like you say something and people are going to freak out.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, and so the next vocab word we heard, very important, is the one you'll have to yell out to get the bill or the check.
It is 买单. 买 is a third tone and 单 is first tone.
So broken down, actually, those words, those characters are the character first 买 is to buy, and the 单 is...
kind of like a sheet of paper, but in this case will be the bill.
Yeah, so it makes sense.
So one note about this phrase, 买单, it's kind of like a nicer sounding phrase to say I want to pay the bill. And it basically came out when I was, probably in my early teens.
Ah, so it's more like more modern term.
Yeah, more modern. There was actually a sketch on TV about this, and some people didn't know what it meant when it first came out. So when two friends went to a restaurant to eat, and one friend said, 买单 means we're done, we're full, right? Gonna pay the bill. And the other one says, what else are you gonna buy? We're so full already. Because the phrase means
he
to
wants
buy
to buy the
something,
bill.
right? Right.
Makes sense in a way. Okay, so today's dialogue seems to have a lot of hollering and exclamation. So now we're going to teach you an exclamation in Chinese too that was in the dialogue. And it's the equivalent of wow.
And that is wow.
Wow.
Kind of the same, almost.
Almost the same. And what are they whying about, Victor? There is something quite exciting in this dialogue and very exciting about eating in China.
Right. And I think this is true for most places in China, is that the stuff there is very, very cheap.
Right. And so they are wowing about the bill because it's very...
inexpensive. 便宜. So the first word, 便, is second tone, and the second word is the neutral tone. And again, it's 便宜, and it means inexpensive.
That's right. And the good news is you can generally get very inexpensive food everywhere in China. So you can use this phrase often.
Right.
Okay, on to the grammar.
It's grammar time.
Now let's have a little money discussion.
Ooh.
Yeah, because there are a few ways to expressing amounts of money in Chinese.
Ah, that's right. So let's start with when the waitress brings the bill. She said 18 yuan. So first of all, let's just break this apart. We have the number, the total first, which was 18, and that is
18. 18. 10 is second tone and 8 is first tone.
Yeah, and really literally it means 10-8, and that's the word for 18. That's how easy Chinese numbers are. But we'll have more on that in a future lesson. Then you have the money word that you're going to use. And there's a few of them in Chinese, actually.
Right. In this case, she said 18 yuan. Yuan, which is second tone, and it's the official unit for the Chinese currency.
Yeah, it's a more formal term, slightly more formal. Now, another one that we hear in the dialogue is a little bit later on when the customer repeats the price. And this one I think is a little bit more common, more colloquial. How do they say 18 renminbi?
And they said 18块钱. 18块钱.
Right. So again, it's the amount first, 18, 18. And then we hear them say 18块钱.
块钱, right?
This is two words. The first one is 块. It's a measure word. It's fourth tone. The next word is 钱. It's the word for money. So here's a little thing in Chinese we're going to introduce to you now. Dun, 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 dun. Measure words. So since we're talking about amount of something right now, it's a good time to tell you about measure words. Money is something that always uses measure words when you're talking about it because it's always an amount.
Right.
So whenever you're enumerating something in Chinese, you use a measure word to sort of quantify an amount of something. So what did we just hear? We heard 18
块钱.
and we said 块 is a measure word. 钱 is the word for money. So after the number, we put a measure word, and then we talk about what the object is.
Right. And here's the whole thing again. 18块钱.
Right. And the good news again with Chinese is that if that is too long for you, The Chinese love to shorten things and abbreviate them, so you don't even have to say that much. You can just say
18块
which is probably the most common. Most people just say 18块.
18块
Yeah. So when you use the measure word, sometimes you can even drop off the object.
Right. And the kuai here, it's kind of like the American version of a buck.
Yeah, exactly. So you definitely get a lot for your money at a noodle shop, I would say. How much is like 18 renminbi worth in maybe US dollars, Victor?
I think that's less than 3
For
US
two
dollars.
people,
For
noodles.
2 people. And it's true, you can really eat for sometimes even less than
Yeah,
that
even
in
less
China.
than this.
So go to China. All you need to pay just the plane ticket. Everything else is cheap.
It's true. And speaking of cheap, we know you can say something is cheap. We learned the word for cheap, inexpensive. It was 便宜.
Right?
And if you want to say very, remember we learned the word for very last lesson.
很
So if we want to say something is very cheap, we say
很便宜
yeah. But in this dialogue, we got to hear something even better because this wasn't just very cheap. This was really cheap.
Right.
So if you want to say something is really something, to intensify an adjective, you can simply say
真便宜
真 is the word for really.
and it's first tone.
Okay, so what if I wanted to say these noodles were really delicious, not just very delicious? What would I say?
真好吃
Okay, so that's it for today's lesson. But what do you say, Victor? One last time for good measure. Can you yell 服务员 the way that it was meant to be yelled?
Sure, you can be like 服务员
Oh, come on. I think it has to be louder. We don't want to break anyone's
And people
eardrums.
really do, like you would never call out the waiter in a Western restaurant. But
Yeah.
in China, you do. You really do that.
So do not be shy. It's actually necessary. Okay, well, that just about does it for today. But we hope that everyone goes to the site and tests what they learned because it's very important language today. How do you do that? Well, you can go to the flashcards. In the Learning Center, you can go to the flashcards and add all of these words from today's lesson and then go through and work through them to help you memorize them.
Yeah, so memory and comprehension. There you go, the flashcards.
So we'll see you at the website, ChineseClass101.com. Have another listen to the dialogue, and we will see you next time.
再见.
再见.
服务员，买单。
您好，18元
哇，真便宜。
，18块钱。你好，
大家好。
Chinese Class 101.
大家好，我是 Victor.
And I'm Amber. Welcome back to ChineseClass101.com.
Today we have the Absolute Beginner Series Season 1 Lesson 11.
Yes, and this next few lessons are going to teach us some essentials that you will need when you get to China right away.
Mm-hmm.
And today's lesson is entitled, Are You a Foreigner?
Are you a foreigner? In the true Chinese fashion.
Yes, and the thing is, you might not realize how high frequency this conversation is actually going to be. It's a classic.
Yeah, definitely.
So some of the words you're going to learn in this dialogue, you may hear and use every day, we promise. So listen carefully. So in this lesson, you're going to learn how to tell someone you don't understand what they are saying.
Mm-hmm. And this conversation is between two strangers.
Yeah, we'll listen to the dialogue in a minute. But first, we want to remind everybody, please come to the site and comment. We know we have a comment section for each lesson. And it's a great place to come if you have any questions about the lesson, the grammar points or anything that you learned.
Right?
If you just want to say hi, that's okay too.
Yeah. Let us know who you are.
Yes, tell a story. Tell us
Are
where
you
you're
a
from.
foreigner?
Yes. What kind of foreigner are you? Anyways, come to the site and you'll find the place to comment and you can get involved with the community as well.
Right.
Okay, now let's listen to the conversation.
你是外国人吗？
对不起，我听不懂。
哦，你是外国人。
我听不懂。
重复一次，慢速。
One more time, a little slower.
你是外国人吗？
对不起，我听不懂。
哦，你是外国人。
我听不懂。
重复一次，加英文翻译。
One more time with the English.
你是外国人吗？
Are you a foreigner?
对不起，我听不懂。
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
哦，你是外国人。
Oh, you are a foreigner.
我听不懂。
I don't understand. Ah, the classic Weigoran tag, Victor.
Yeah, the Chinese are fascinated by foreigners.
I think it's true. I mean, you will get a lot more attention there. I remember coming back to America and thinking, how come nobody notices me anymore? It's like kind of a good ego boost.
Because in China, it's more homogeneous society, so you
Yeah.
do stand out with
You do.
know, blonde hair or blue eyes or whatever.
You definitely look different. And I do have to say, although you may at times feel like a bit of an animal being looked at in a zoo, it's not in a bad way. They mean it in the best way possible.
Talking about self-consciousness.
Okay, let's take a look at the vocabulary for this lesson.
And now, the vocab section.
外国人
Foreigner.
外国人外国人对不起
Sorry.
对不起对不起听不懂
To not understand.
听不懂听不懂 Oh
Oh.
Oh Oh 是
To be.
是
Okay, let's have a closer look at the usage for some of these words and phrases. Okay, so Victor, what is this word for foreigner that you're going to be pegged with the second you arrive in China?
We heard it in the dialogue. It is 外国人 外 is fourth tone, 国 is second tone, and 人 is also second tone. And it literally means outside country person.
Yeah. And you know, this is interesting too, because I think the Chinese are so fascinated by foreigners that they have more than one term for foreigner. Because sometimes you'll just be walking down the street, guaranteed all our listeners, if you go to China, and you will one day hear someone yell out,
老外.
老外, which is similar. It's just this lao is third tone. It means like old, and then wai means foreigner. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know, but I kind of think of it like a term of endearment.
Yeah, it's kind of like good old something in English, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the Chinese version, exactly the same almost.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's generally not said with any malice. I mean,
Right.
maybe only in the context if they're complaining about the laowais, which I'm sure we warrant at times. But yeah, I think it's a term of endearment. Okay. So now, as a true Waiguoren, or laowai as the case may be, it may very well be that you happen to be learning Chinese and you don't understand a whole lot yet.
Right.
This is what I'm saying. Do not panic, anyone. If you find yourself in this situation, it's no cause for panic.
Yeah.
Because we have some more magic words. If you learn the magic words, everything's going to be okay.
Right. If you know these phrases, or the next one I'm going to teach you, everyone will understand and try to help you.
Yeah.
Maybe with a little charades
Yeah.
or whatever, with a translator or
Yep.
whatnot.
And the magic words are,
听不懂.
yes, which means I don't understand.
Right. So 听 is first tone, 不 is fourth tone, and 懂 is third tone.
Right. Okay, so you can use this phrase to tell someone that you don't understand what they're saying. And they're, of course, going to be very understanding. Chinese people are very patient
Right.
with people learning their language, I find.
Right. And they'll be like, oh, 外国人.
Yeah, like, oh. You'll hear the oh.
Or 老外.
That's right. So you shouldn't get discouraged. And sometimes this is a good phrase to learn as well, because you might even be trying to say something and maybe the Chinese person might say to you, 听不懂. But
That's
don't
gonna
get
be
discouraged.
encouraging.
Don't get discouraged. Just keep trying. I mean, the truth is that maybe a lot of people haven't had a lot of exposure to foreigners learning Chinese, and so they're not used to different accents. It doesn't mean that you're speaking terribly. Just keep trying to pronounce it, and they'll probably get it.
Yeah, and I think it's true that Chinese people are also more direct
Yes,
than
that is
people in
true.
the West. And especially if they feel comfortable with you, they would be even more direct.
Yes.
So they say 听不懂, so just go ahead and say it again.
Yeah,
Or find
don't
some
take
other way.
offense.
Right.
Don't be discouraged. Okay, so the next vocab word is something also we're probably going to need right away, because as a foreigner learning a new language, we may pronounce something wrong and say something weird or some sort of faux pas, So
Right.
we're going to definitely want to learn how to apologize or say sorry or excuse me.
Yeah, or just in any situation, you may need this word.
Yeah. So we learned one before, which was
不好意思 previously.
Mhm.
And there's another way too that you'll hear probably even more often, and it is 对不起. 对 is fourth tone, 不 is also fourth tone, and 起 is third tone.
That's right. So if you do say maybe the tone wrong and end up saying a swear word instead of the real word, you can say 对不起.
Yeah, 对不起.
Yeah, and then you can say I'm a foreigner. 我是外国人.
That can always be your excuse.
They'll forgive you. Okay, and last but not least, we have this little word that really doesn't require much translation. So this is a nice Chinese word to learn because it finally sounds like English,
Right.
which is the word for oh.
And it's oh.
Yeah.
I would say probably just with less stretch in the end than
Yeah,
English.
maybe slightly shorter. Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I kind of noticed in our dialogue, it was used as the sort of moment of realization. Oh, because this Chinese person realizes, yes, in fact, this person who looks like a foreigner is in fact a foreigner
Yep.
because he 听不懂 everything. Okay, today's grammar, we have just a couple points. The first to ease you in is a review.
Yes, of the verb we have seen popping up before, 是, and it's rough, and it's a rough equivalent to the English to be, although not exactly the same.
Yeah, and it pops up again in today's dialogue where we hear
你是外国人吗?
right. And what is really nice about this sentence is that, again, it's showing us some classic Chinese word order for this kind of a simple sentence. And the good news is that it matches English
Right.
because how we say this in Chinese, 你是外国人吗, is word for word basically how we would say it in English, which is you are a foreigner. And then the question
Yeah,
mark.
you're a foreigner, right?
And the word ma, as we know, what makes a statement into a question.
Okay, so our next grammar point revisits 听不懂.
Right. I don't understand. So, first of all, you're going to be able to use this anytime you can't understand what someone says to you. So, you can just burn this phrase into your brain. It would help a lot.
Right, so let's break down 听不懂. 听 is the verb for to hear, and 不, as we know from before, is our negator word. And 懂 here means to understand.
Right. So, you put it all together and it literally means hear, not understand.
Right.
It's like it's going in. It's not that you can't hear them, but you hear them and
It's
you
not
can't
making sense.
process what they are saying, which is generally the case when you're learning a language, kind of like malfunction at the junction sort of idea.
Right. So this is a special structure in Chinese that you will definitely come across more as you go along.
Yeah. It's basically a way that they use verbs in Chinese to indicate that it's not possible to reach a conclusion or a result. And you'll learn more about that later as we go along. But just for now, you can memorize the 听不懂, and it will
Right.
come in very handy.
And one more thing, just on the flip side, if it so happens that you do understand, bravo to you, and you want to let the other person know, you can use the same phrase just to change it a little.
That's right. If you want to tell him that you do understand, you can use the positive form. So in this case, we're going to swap out the boo for something else.
And rather than to say 不, you say 听得懂,
Right. The, which is second tone.
right? And with that, you indicate, in fact, you do understand.
That's right. And I would like to say, have no fear, because if you keep listening to us at ChineseClass101.com, you very soon will 听得懂 this and much, much more.
Right.
In no
definitely.
time. Okay, that just about does it for today. But on a pronunciation note, we do want to help you guys all to improve, keep improving. And so we want to tell you that in the Premium Learning Center, we have a tool for that.
And that's the all-powerful voice recording tool.
Yes, just one click of a button. And you can record your voice and then play it back just as easily.
Yeah, so record your own voice and listen to it, and then compare it with the native speakers.
Yeah, and then just adjust your pronunciation accordingly and keep trying.
So that's it for now, and we'll see you next lesson.
Yes, have another listen to the dialogue, but we will say for now, 再见.
再见.
你是外国人吗？
对不起，我听不懂。
哦，你是外国人。
我听不懂。你好，
大家好。
Chinese Class 101.
everybody. Welcome back to ChineseClass101.com. I am Amber.
大家好，我是 Victor.
And today we have our Absolute Beginner Season 1 continuing with Lesson 12. Another essential lesson for those arriving in China.
Right.
Today's lesson, Victor, what is it called?
It's called Finding a Bathroom.
I mean, it's true I'm a little bit bathroom obsessed because I have a very small bladder, but I'm sure many of our listeners will appreciate this lesson.
You know, it's just funny that we're teaching English speakers or non-native Chinese speakers to, say these things in Chinese. And when the Chinese people come out to, say America or England or wherever, they're going through the same process. They have little books.
It's universal.
With pronunciations labeled
the bathroom
in Chinese.
is universal. It's natural. Nothing to be ashamed of.
Everybody needs it.
So first we gave you eating, then we gave you I don't understand, and now we bring you the bathroom.
Right.
So in this lesson, you're going to learn how to ask for a bathroom.
This conversation is between a store clerk and a customer.
Yeah. And we're going to listen to the dialogue, but first we just want to let everybody know a little tip. If you are a basic or a premium subscriber and you have a 3G phone, guess what you can do? Do you know, Victor?
No, what can you do?
It's very exciting. You can see the lesson notes in your favorite browser on your
cool.
phone. So if you want to find out how to do that, come to ChineseClass101.com and you can find out more. Now we'll listen to the conversation.
洗手间在哪儿？
没有洗手间，
没有洗手间。
没有。
重复一次，慢速。
One more time, a little slower.
洗手间在哪儿？
没有洗手间，
没有洗手间。
没有。
重复一次，加英文翻译。
One more time with the English.
洗手间在哪儿？
Where is the bathroom?
没有洗手间，
We don't have a bathroom.
没有洗手间。
You don't have a bathroom?
没有。
No, we don't. Personally, Victor, I think that I know every decent bathroom in Shanghai. I should write a bathroom guide.
That's pretty sad.
Maybe a podcast bathroom guide.
You should.
It could be a bestseller. It'd be like ranked number 1 on iTunes, maybe.
A Google map it.
Yes, Google map of the bathrooms that are in Shanghai. But anyway, these resources get built up out of necessity, so...
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at some bathroom talk from the lesson. Look at the vocab.
And now, the vocab section.
洗手间，
Bathroom.
洗手间，洗手间，在
At.
在哪儿
Where.
哪儿没有
To not have.
没有
Okay, let's take a closer look at the usage for some of these words and phrases. And, of course, the key vocabulary in this lesson being the bathroom, restroom, whatever you want to call
Right.
it. It is
洗手间，洗 is a third tone, 手 third tone, and 间 is first tone.
Yeah, and those of you with sensitive ears will notice that when Victor pronounced 洗手, it was actually second tone and third tone because of the tone change rule.
Right.
2 third tones in a row, the first one will become second tone.
So 洗手间.
Yeah, and what it literally means is to wash hands room.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not that different than washroom.
Yeah, so it sounds very not so explicit.
Yes, for like a euphemism.
Right.
And like in English, the Chinese have a few different words for bathroom.
Right.
What's another common one, Victor?
Another one is called 厕所.
Yes.
厕所.
I don't think this one's like as much of a euphemism. It's a little bit more blaring.
Yeah, but it's...
It means toilet.
It means toilet, right. So 厕所.
Yeah.
厕 is fourth tone and 所 is third tone.
So you can swap out any of these words for bathroom into the question in our dialogue, right? You could just say
Yeah.
厕所 instead.
Yeah, instead of 洗手间. Although 洗手间 does sound better.
Yeah, it's it's more polite. So you would say 厕所在哪儿?
Yeah, you can say 洗手间在哪儿?
Yeah. Okay. So yes, we know the bathroom is so important. It seems to be having the starring role in our vocab today. But there is another really common word that we learn in this dialogue that crops up a lot. And we want to teach it to you. It kind of always starts out in situations like we see in our dialogue. You know, you're asking for something and maybe the person might not really want to be bothered with you. Not necessarily that they really don't have it, but they just like, want you to go away. It's too many people, you know. And I like to call it getting mayoed. We heard a classic getting mayoed in this dialogue.
Right. First of all, let us tell you about 没有. We hear it in the dialogue in response to the 洗手间 inquiry. In fact, we hear it twice. The first time was 没有洗手间, and then it is reinforced the second time too. So first of all, let us tell you about 没有. 没 is second tone and 有 is a third tone.
And it literally means to not have.
Right, there's none. So we hear it in this dialogue in response to the 洗手间 inquiry. In fact, we heard it twice. The first time was 没有洗手间, and then it is reinforced the second time as well.
Yes, that's how bad we got mayoed, Victor. Not just once, but twice.
Twice. You got served with Chinese phrase 没有.
That's right. So our person's asking where the restroom is, the bathroom, and the answer is we don't have one, and that's very simple to say in Chinese.
Right.
You can actually just say
没有. That's it.
Yeah, and why I'm talking about this mayoed phenomenon, Victor, is because like sometimes they don't even know what you're asking yet, and then they'll mayo you. So sometimes now, if they mayo me, I argue with it. So that's my tip. Maybe that's why in our dialogue, the person kind of pushed it. They asked again, you don't have a bathroom?
Yeah, how can you not have a bathroom?
Sometimes actually it works, though. People can be like won over if you keep nagging them. Okay, so the moral of the story of this dialogue is if you get mayoed, don't give up.
Right. Keep on trying until you find that bathroom.
And sometimes if you need a bathroom, you cannot give up. So no choice.
You can threaten them if you don't have a bathroom.
Yes, try that. Try that.
Imagine the consequences.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so let's look at some grammar.
It's grammar time.
Okay, well, first of all, we learn a very important word in this dialogue, which is the word for where in Chinese.
The one we hear in the dialogue today is 哪儿, 哪儿, and its third tone. Now, kind of depending on where you are in China or where the other person is from, you may also hear the word 哪里.
2 words for where.
Right, so 哪, again, is third tone, and 里here can be the neutral tone.
Right. So basically, the first half of the word is the same, that na sound. It's just in the north, they use this R sound at the end. And in the south, in this case, they put this li instead of the R sound.
Correct.
Okay, so you walk into a place and you want to know where something is. Let's break down how to ask where something is in Chinese.
So it's not like in English in this case, where the where comes first. Rather, when asking the location of something in Chinese, you actually put the thing you're asking about first, and then you add where at the end of the sentence.
So just like we heard in our dialogue, they said
洗手间在哪儿?
So the thing they're looking for is the 洗手间, that came first.
Right.
Then we have the word 在, fourth tone, which means at.
Right.
And then we have where, 哪儿. So bathroom at where is the way that you ask that question in Chinese.
Correct.
Okay, so you can use this to ask where anything is. Like, let's use another example, Victor. What if I wanted to ask, where is the bus stop?
Well, bus stop in Chinese, 车站, 车站, first tone and fourth tone. So you can say 车站在哪儿?
That easy. Or you could say 车站在哪里, right?
Right.
Both will be understood.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use it for places. Now, what about for people, Victor? Can you use it for things like, where is Amber?
Yeah, you can say, Amber 在哪儿?
Right. And how about for things? Like maybe, where is my book?
My book in Chinese is 我的书, 我的书. And you can say, 我的书在哪儿?
Perfect. Okay, well, that's it for today's lesson. But before we go, this is also a little lesson on toilets in China. Because some people might be wondering, is it easy to find a bathroom or the bathroom's clean? And some people get apprehensive. I don't know if you know this, Victor, but especially girls, they get kind of like worried about the toilet situation. So I can tell you that it's kind of location based, don't you think?
Right.
The quality of toilet definitely.
And another thing I've noticed too, based on my own travels, you have to prepare your own toilet paper in China.
Very important. And some places, if you get out of the big cities, they don't have a stall door. And someone gave me a very good tip, which is always carry an umbrella. It's a portable stall door. You just put the umbrella up. So really, the rural areas might be a little bit hardcore,
geez.
but cities will be okay.
Right.
And so it's all right.
So see Chinese sentences as well as travel tips.
That's
Or
right.
It sounds like survival tips.
Yes,
Almost.
but please don't let it deter you. Really, you get used to it. It's not that bad. You will survive even a scary, gross bathroom.
Strengthen your survival skills.
Yes. Okay, so before we go though, let you listen to the dialogue one more time. We want to remind everybody that we have lesson notes available for each lesson. So they're on PDF. You can go to the site in the Learning Center and find the lesson notes and look them up so that you can follow along with what we're teaching you. And that's it for today.
So let's listen to the conversation again, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, 再见。
再见。
洗手间在哪儿？
没有洗手间，
没有洗手间。
没有。
你好，
大家好。
Chinese Class 101.
Hey everybody, welcome back to ChineseClass101.com. This is our Absolute Beginner Series, Season 1, Lesson 13. I'm Amber, by the way.
大家好，我是 Victor.
And our lesson today is another lesson in Chinese essentials, the things you're going to have to need to know as soon as you get to China.
It's very particular to China's
Dynamic, would
dynamic,
you say?
yeah.
This
These are the
lesson?
actually real things you're going to need.
Yep. And today's is called Let Me Through. Now, why is this essential? 1.3 billion people?
Yeah, you see immediately once you get to China, you see why this is useful.
That's right. Today we tackle crowds. So yes, this is something you're going to need to learn. Not only the speech to go along with tackling the crowds, but also a technique I like to call crowd worming, Victor.
Well, you live in Shanghai, so I think you're probably the expert in doing
Yeah,
this.
so listen and learn. So in this lesson, you're going to learn how to ask someone to get out of the way, politely, of course,
Right? This conversation takes place in a crowded place.
which could be anywhere, and it's between two strangers. So we're going to listen to the conversation, but first we just want to tell everybody for basic and premium members that if you have a 3G phone, this is for all you techie people out there. Hey, I think I have a 3G phone. But if you do, you can actually see the lesson notes in your favorite browser on your phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so stop by ChineseClass101.com to find out more. And now let's listen to the conversation.
对不起，让一下，
嗯，
请让一下。
哦，对不起，
重复一次，慢速。
One more time, a little slower.
对不起，让一下，
啊，
请让一下。
哦，对不起，
重复一次，加英文翻译。
One more time with the English.
对不起，让一下。
Excuse me, let me through.
嗯，
Huh?
请让一下。
Please let me through.
哦，对不起，
Oh, sorry. So, Victor, we've talked about magic words before, and the weird thing is, when I learned these words, they are magic.
They are.
They really work.
Immediately, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's true. Some people might not even say anything. Like some people do just kind of shove people out of the way. That works as well. But if you're not
Yeah.
comfortable with that, these words are kind of the lucky charm.
Right. I think the thing in China is people usually, because it's so crowded, sometimes people just don't really watch around themselves what other people are doing. But if you say, get their attention, it works like magic.
Like a charm. Okay, so let's take a look at the vocabulary so that you know the magic words.
And now, the vocab section.
对不起，
Sorry, excuse me.
对不起，对不起，让一下，
Let me through.
让一下，让一下。
Uh-huh. Huh?
请
Please.
请
Okay, let's take a closer look at the usage for some of these words and phrases. So I'd say, Victor, that we start with our polite-isms because, when you're kind of ordering someone to move out of your way, you want to cloak it with a few nice words.
Yeah. Well, we can start with a review of one of the words for sorry or excuse me. So
yes.
remember that one, 对不起.
Yes, 对不起. It's a good word to use for excuse me, for sorry, kind of a generic apology term.
Yeah, definitely. 对 is fourth tone, 不 is also fourth tone, and 起 is a third tone.
Yes, and remember also as a review, there's another word you can kind of use interchangeably, which is
不好意思.
Yeah, it's another sorry word. 不好意思.
不好意思. And 不 is fourth tone, 好 is third tone, 意 is fourth tone, and 四 here is the neutral tone.
Yes. And now we have another word to be polite too in this dialogue we hear, which is the word for please.
请, and it's a third tone.
Yeah. And one side note, Victor, I think we should mention about the Chinese please is that I find it's not really as necessary as in English. Like people don't always say please when they're requesting something.
Right.
Because I think Chinese is just a lot more direct.
Yeah, definitely. And 请 is like very, very formal.
It's like when you want to really flower things up a bit, but it's not really necessary.
Right.
So it's up to you. In this case, like our dialogue, you can say qing and it'll seem extra nice.
Yes. Then we have the word for to let or to allow, which is 让, and it's fourth tone. In this case, it is being used to ask someone to let you through or allow space, that kind of thing. So we'll talk about the entire phrase 让一下 in the grammar section in a moment.
Yeah, but for now, just know that this word 让 it's actually a very useful word in Chinese to learn. It's a verb to mean to let or to allow.
Right.
And last but not least, Victor, we have a couple little tiny words. These are always really easy ones to learn. Little expressions to come out of your mouth.
Very useful too.
Yeah. Well, I like these kinds of words in Chinese because they're kind of ways to show emotion or agreement or something without really saying that much at all.
Right.
Just like the tone that you say it in means a lot.
Yeah.
So what were the ones we heard in our dialogue today?
So we heard the person say, the first one is, huh?
Yeah, and that was when the first person in the dialogue asked the person to get out of the way. Obviously, they were unaware that, this person wanted to get through.
Right.
So they used this.
Kind of like,
Huh? It's just like in English,
like
how
what?
we say, huh?
Right, exactly.
And what tone is it, Victor?
This one, usually it's the neutral tone, but in this case, because it's a question, it's kind of like a second tone.
Yeah, people will say it in second tone, kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
It sounds just like, huh, in English, except,
It also works when you're trying to answer someone.
Oh, how would that
sound? Maybe somebody is telling you direction or telling you to do something and say,
Oh, it's like an acknowledgement as well.
Right. You don't have to say anything, just,
This is like the generic word for when you can't remember any other words to say.
Just make a sound.
It's kind of like the word that transcends all language barriers. It's a sound more than a word. Good. Okay, then we also have another little word which came after the person realized that you wanted them to get out of the way.
All right. Again, just like in English, this is oh.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, in English.
Yeah.
And is there a tone on that?
Also the neutral tone, and it also depends on what context you use it, and it can mean different things.
Yeah, so this is one case when you're allowed to kind of stretch the word around a little.
Trust your own
You
feelings.
can be like, oh, or oh. It all works. So it's good. There's some words that are like English and Chinese.
Right.
Maybe only one or two, but hey, you got to count your blessings.
It's grammar time.
Okay, so for grammar, we're going to revisit, as promised, the 让一下 phrase that we learned. So we learned that 让 is a verb that means to let or to allow. And we heard it in the phrase, as we mentioned in the dialogue.
让一下.
Right. So this phrase basically means let me through. But what is with this little 一下 added onto the end, Victor? Why is that there?
Usually people add 一下 after a verb to make it a little bit softer.
Right. So it's not like,
Get out of my way.
get out of my way.
Right.
It's more like, can you get out of my way?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, get out of my way, please.
Right. And because, as we mentioned, you can't really change the tone of the words too often in Chinese. Instead, you can add this 一下, and that will make the verb automatically sound softer.
Right.
Not so much like an order. Often we hear this combined with other verbs as well, very frequently, Victor. What are some other verbs you'll commonly hear people add the 一下 on to the end to soften it?
Well, you can say, for example, if you say touch it a little bit, you can say 摸一下.
So maybe there's like in the market, there's like a really soft fake fur coat or something.
Yeah.
Then maybe the shopkeeper will be like,
You're kind of interested, and then
Yeah.
the shopkeeper's like, you can touch it.
Yeah, touch it a little. 摸一下.
I feel a little bit.
Yeah. Or another really common one, maybe more common, is to say, have a look at something. They'll tell you,
看一下.
yeah, that's really common.
The word for to look is 看, and so you can say 看一下.
Yeah, it's like the shopkeeper being like, oh, have a look, instead of, look.
Right.
You look now. So you're going to hear this lots and tacked onto the end of different verbs just to make it sound more polite. So that was a nice short and sweet lesson, but very useful. So we strongly recommend everyone put it to memory. We're almost ready to listen to the dialogue one more time to help you do that. But just before we go, we also wanted to tell premium members about a little feature on the site that maybe you don't know about. And that's the review track.
It is available in the premium section of the website, at the Learning Center, and through iTunes via the premium feed.
Right. And what it is, it's something to help you perfect your pronunciation and to memorize the vocabulary and phrases we learned in this lesson. So what it does is it gives you the vocab and the phrases, followed by a short pause for you to repeat the words aloud.
Okay.
It's a good way to review.
Yeah, definitely.
So best way to get really good at Chinese fast. Try using it. Okay, well, we'll listen to the Let Me Through dialogue one more time, and we will see you next time at ChineseClass101.com.
Yeah, 再见.
再见.
对不起，让一下，
嗯，
请让一下。
哦，对不起。
你好，
大家好，
Chinese Class 101.
大家好，我是 Victor.
And I'm Amber. Welcome back to ChineseClass101.com. This is our Absolute Beginner Lesson series, and this is Season 1, Lesson 14, More Chinese Essentials.
And today we're going to talk about, can you write that down?
Yeah, another essential thing to learn for your trip to China.
Definitely, especially for taxi addresses, right?
That's right. So we're going to teach you today how to get where you need to go, even if you cannot speak enough Chinese yet.
And the key to this is,
Hmm?
well, you better listen to the dialogue and then you soon know.
Way to bait them, Victor. Okay, so in this lesson, you're going to learn how to ask someone to write something down for you.
This conversation takes place in a hotel.
Yep, and it's between a clerk and a tourist. Okay, but before we listen to the conversation, we want to remind everybody to stop by ChineseClass101.com if they have any questions after the lesson and leave us a comment, and we'll do our best to answer, clarify anything that you need.
Right. And if you have a question, the chances are other people probably think the same.
Yes.
So, asking the question not just helps yourself, but helps other people as well.
Yeah, so now let's listen to the conversation.
我们想去北海公园儿，你知道在哪儿吗？
知道，
你可以写一下吗？
当然，
谢谢。
重复一次，慢速。
One more time, a little slower.
我们想去北海公园儿，你知道在哪儿吗？
知道，
你可以写一下吗？
当然，
谢谢。
重复一次，加英文翻译。
One more time with the English.
我们想去北海公园儿，你知道在哪儿吗？
We want to go to Beihai Park. Do you know where that is?
知道，
Yes.
你可以写一下吗？
Can you write it down?
当然，
Of course.
谢谢。
Thanks. So, Victor, this is something people should know. It is nothing to be ashamed of. Even Chinese people do this because a lot of Chinese words sound alike. So sometimes the best way to avoid confusion is to ask to get something written down.
Right. A lot of Chinese characters are homophones, meaning that they have the same pronunciation, but are actually a different Chinese character. So they have a different meaning.
So having it written down can decode a lot.
Yep.
Okay, but now we're going to decode the vocabulary for you. So let's take a look at the vocabulary for this lesson.
And now, the vocab section.
北海公园
Beihai Park.
北海公园北海公园知道
To know.
知道知道在
At.
在哪儿
Where.
哪儿可以
May. Can.
可以写
To write.
写一下
A while.
一下当然
Of course. Indeed.
当然想
Would like. To want.
想去
To go.
去
Okay, let's take a closer look at the usage for some of these words and phrases. We know from this dialogue that there was someone that would like to do something here because we heard the verb for to want or to express desire to do something, would like, and that was
想 and it's third tone.
yeah. And the thing that they wanted to do was
To visit a very cool spot in Beijing. And
you would
it's-
know, Victor.
Yes.
And the thing that they would like to do is what, Victor?
To visit a very cool spot in Beijing.
And you would know all about that, of course.
It's very famous, yes. It's called 北海公园.
Yes.
北海公园.
So the first two words, Beihai, is the name of the park. What are the tones on that, Victor?
北 is a third tone. 海 is also third tone.
And then because of the tone change rule, the first third tone turns to second. So it's actually pronounced
北海 as in second tone and third tone.
right. Everyone get that straight because you definitely want to see it. The second two words are the words for park.
Right. And it's 公园. 公 is first tone. 园 is second tone.
Yeah. And parks in China are so cool because there's so much more than a park. Don't you think, Victor? There's so much action.
Yeah.
Lots of activity. Definitely worth seeing.
From morning to evening. The whole day is just very busy.
That's right. And I mean, because most people don't have a yard. So, you know, if they want to go exercise, they want to go sing karaoke, they want to dance, they want to do Tai Chi, they go to the park. So, Victor, tell us about this park. What do you know about it? Have you been to this park?
I have not
You were
personally.
you lived in Beijing. You're just too
However-
busy eating or something. I've been to this park.
Yeah, how did you like it?
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there for the Olympics, actually.
Oh, okay.
And you know what I was doing when I was there? I was interviewing tourists about their feelings about being in Beijing for the Olympics. It was quite
Oh,
interesting.
Okay.
But there's a big tower, right?
Right, it's a big white tower overlooking a lake, and you can boat in the lake.
Do they have those inflatable hamster balls in the lake?
I
I
don't
think
know.
they do. Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you haven't been to a Chinese
Oh,
park.
that sounds a little bit. I
You
don't
can
know.
roll around in them like a giant human
Oh.
hamster. Okay, so back to the dialogue. Most people do know this park because it's very famous in Beijing. That's why the clerk, when asked if they knew where the place was, they answered what?
知道
Right, being the verb to know.
the affirmative 知道. 知 is first tone and 道 is fourth tone.
Yeah, so this 知道 basically can be used just to acknowledge that you know something. So like if you notice in the question, they're like, do you know this spot? The person just answered, as Victor mentioned, in the affirmative by repeating 知道,
Right.
the main verb of the sentence. It's one way to say yes in Chinese, which we'll talk more about in a minute.
In Chinese, you don't even need to say I know. You can just leave off the subject.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about Chinese. You can always shorten everything, it seems.
Yeah, because you are talking, right? So you don't have to say I know. You just say no.
Yeah, no, I know.
No as in knowing.
To know, yes. Okay, so next comes what I like to call the ancient Chinese secret, as we found out in our dialogue, which
Oh.
is to write down the name of something, make your life much easier.
Yes.
So maybe if you're just a beginning learner, you might not be able to write it down yourself. So we use this sentence to get helpful Chinese people everywhere to help us out, right, Victor?
Yes.
And the sentence was?
你可以写一下吗?
Right. So for this sentence, there's two key verbs to know, to understand this sentence. They are
Which is 可以 ke is third tone and yi is also third tone.
But of course, tone change rule changes to second, third, and that means can.
Right. And the other one after 可以 is 写, 写, and it's third tone.
Yep, and that's the verb for to write. So we'll have more on that sentence in the grammar section in a minute.
Now, hopefully if you run into someone just as helpful. Now, hopefully you will run into someone just as helpful as this person,
Yes,
right?
hopefully.
Somebody armed with a pen and paper.
Paid to do this job of telling tourists where to go.
Right, because they'll help you to 写 the name of the place in Chinese characters.
Yeah, and I find most Chinese people very helpful in these kinds of cases.
Yes, definitely.
And in this case, the clerk is so helpful that they actually responded with 当然.
当然, and 当 is first tone, 然 is second tone.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, indeed, of course.
Yes.
Like a very enthusiastic, sure,
Certainly.
in Chinese.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone asks me, if I know Chinese is the most spoken language in the world, I will say 知道. But if I really wanted to emphasize, I could say 当然知道.
Right. Remember, 知道 was to know. So you could just say, oh, I know, right? Or
Right.
no. Or if you really want to add some emphasis, 当然知道.
当然知道, of course. It's like, do you know who Barack Obama is? 当然知道.
Do you know who Hu Jintao is? 当然知道.
Right.
Okay, good. So now you are armed with this piece of paper someone helped you write down the name of a place to. Honestly, Victor, I think you have nothing to fear. Do you?
Yeah, no, you're all set.
You just take that paper and
Just don't
show
lose the
it everywhere.
paper. Unless it gets blown away by the wind.
Yes, hold on tight. So
Then you
yeah,
can ask somebody else.
that's true. More chance to practice. But yeah, use the paper, show a taxi driver, show someone on the street. That's going to help a lot. Oh yeah, and maybe a side tip too, Victor, which I think comes in really handy is while you're at it, maybe get that clerk to write down the name and address of your hotel so that on the way back, you can find your way back. Or you can just take the business card.
Right. Not just outgoing, so you can actually come back that day.
Yeah, that's right. See, we cover all your bases. We don't want you wandering around lost.
So now let's move to the grammar.
It's grammar time.
Okay, so we ease you into grammar today with, again, another 一下 appearance. Remember, we learned that in the last lesson.
Right. With all of its glory.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, we used it with the verb for to write, which is 写. So we have 写一下
Right, so the 一下 makes it less like, write this down.
instead of the 写. Yeah.
It softens the verb and it's more like, hey, could you write this down for me? Kind of like that. You sound less bossy. You're more likely to get a favor if you probably add this 一下 onto the end.
Definitely. Now, another grammar issue. Since there's not really a universal yes in Chinese, there are a few ways you can agree or acknowledge. One of the most common ways we see in this dialogue. And one of the most common ways we see in this dialogue today.
That's right. To say yes or to agree, what they do in Chinese quite often is just repeat the main verb in the question back in the affirmative.
Right.
So, for example, our question was what, Victor?
你知道在哪儿吗?
Right, which is literally, you know at where, or do you know where it is? So here, definitely the main verb in the sentence is 知道, to know.
And therefore, to answer in the affirmative, all you have to do is to say 知道.
Right. Now, here's the question. We heard about this already, Victor, the 知道. What if you don't agree or you don't know? What if you want to say it in the negative? You don't know.
Very simple. Negating verbs. There are a couple of ways, and the most common way is to use the negating word 不.
Right. So all you do is stick the 不 in front of the verb.
Yeah. For example, if I didn't know where Beihai Park is, I could say 不知道.
Just like that.
Right, and you probably get that a lot too, I feel like, in China.
Yeah, you probably would.
Sometimes not so pleasantly also.
And the thing is, it's a big place. They really might not know. However, if it's somewhere like a main tourist site, chances are if they say 不知道, it's just because they don't want to be bothered. Okay, well, that's it for today's lesson. We're going to listen to the dialogue one more time. But just before we go, we want to tell you guys that there is a way to test what you just learned.
Right. Make this lesson's vocabulary stick by using lesson-specific flashcards in the Learning Center.
That's right. So in our Learning Center, you can find some flashcards for this very lesson, Victor.
Right, and they work.
They do, especially for Chinese characters.
Yeah, definitely.
So go to ChineseClass101.com to check that out. And have another listen to the dialogue. And for now, we will say 再见.
再见.
我们想去北海公园儿，你知道在哪儿吗？
知道，
你可以写一下吗？
当然。
谢谢。
你好，
大家好，
Chinese Class 101.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to ChineseClass101.com. I'm Amber,
大家好，我是 Victor.
and this is our Absolute Beginner Series, Season 1, Lesson 15.
Another essential for
Essential Chinese, yes.
Yes.
And what is the essential thing we're going to learn today, Victor, how to do?
Today is very simple yet very profound.
Yes.
It is no thanks.
Oh, you sound like Confucius. It's so profound. No thanks. And basically what we're doing today is we're arming you with the way to ward off unwanted street vendors. If
Yeah.
anyone
Handing
has
you flyers.
watch bag DVD aggressors, you'll know what we're
For
talking about.
massage.
Yes, anyone in China definitely knows what we're talking about.
Yes.
But this is going to help you a lot because sometimes as a foreigner, you are a bit of a target.
Yes.
So listen in. So in this lesson, you're going to learn how to refuse something.
This conversation takes place in a market.
And it's between a vendor and a passerby. Now, just before we listen to the conversation, we want to just mention that if you are listening on an iPod, an iTouch, or an iPhone, guess what you get to do? You're the privileged few. You get to touch the center button of the iPod right now, or you can touch the screen on the iPhone, and you'll see the lesson notes for this lesson while you're listening.
Right, you can read along while you listen.
Yeah, it'll help you remember better. Okay, let's listen to the conversation.
来，尝一尝。
不要，谢谢。
来吧，很好吃。
我不要，
重复一次，慢速。
One more time, a little slower.
来，尝一尝。
不要，谢谢。
来吧，很好吃。
我不要，
重复一次，加英文翻译。
One more time with the English.
来，尝一尝。
Come, have a taste.
不要，谢谢。
I don't want any, thanks.
来吧，很好吃。
Come on, it's delicious.
我不要，
I don't want it. High frequency essential phrase. 不要.
Very realistic.
Yeah, because it feels like, in our dialogue, our 不要er was trying to be polite at first, but
Yeah.
sometimes the problem is it doesn't work when you're too polite.
Very persistent people.
Yeah, they can be pretty aggressive, the vendors. So whether it's like a food vendor or, marketing some goods, fake bags, etc.
Right.
I mean, personally, I've been followed or chased even
Oh,
Victor, or
geez.
grabbed by the arm, and they would not let me go.
It sounds scarier and scarier. Usually it's not that bad.
Yeah,
You
they
can
just really want you
say-
to buy something. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the vocabulary. So hopefully you can ward off the grabbers.
And now, the vocab section.
来
To come,
来尝
to taste,
尝不
negative prefix,
不要
to want,
要不
particle denotes suggestion,
很
very,
好吃
delicious,
好吃
Okay, let's have a closer look at the usage for some of these words and phrases. So we're going to start with the first word, which is,
来 and its second tone.
yes, it's the ultimate invitation, Victor.
Right.
So simple. 来, it just means to come.
Come.
Come. So in the dialogue, the vendor invites our friend, the passerby, to come.
Right. And what the vendor would like is for our friend to try the delicious food that he offers.
That's right. I mean, that's a nice thing, right?
Right.
So what does he use to offer the taste, Victor? What word?
He uses the word 尝. It's second tone, 尝. And he uses it not just once, but twice, we'll notice.
尝尝, right?
And more on that in a moment in the grammar section.
Yeah. But first, just know that as you're walking the streets of China, you too may be invited, 来, to come try some of the food on offer. The other common thing, as we mentioned, that you will probably be invited to come look at is yelled out quite a bit and requires no translation. Watch bag DVD. Right. So maybe you need to have an explanation if you haven't been to China. What I'm referring to is actually like the pirated goods sellers. They're
Right.
probably the most aggressive ones. And they're so proactive that they actually say it in English. Watch bag DVD.
Watch back DVD. You think in Chinatown in the US too.
Yeah, but I heard someone say handbag actually in New York instead of a bag. So I guess their English may be
They're
a little bit
catering to
better.
the customers.
Yeah, but you can't miss it. Anyways, because they're quite aggressive, this dialogue kind of teaches you to get the point across to them that you're not interested, whether it's for food or other objects that they want you to buy.
Right.
But then, of course, Victor, if you are interested, which you very well may be interested, and there have been times when I am interested, well, I should tell the listeners what you do is just follow them down to some scary back alley, up a rickety staircase with a secret door, and you'll be the happiest person in the world.
Yes.
As long as you barter hard. But if it is the case that you don't want to go down the dirty back alley,
Which is probably the case most of the time.
yes, then what is the phrase that we use, Victor?
You can say 不要.
Right. Now we know bu is our negator word, right? Yao is the verb for to want. So bu is fourth tone, yao is also fourth tone. But in this case, with the tone change rule, it's actually pronounced second tone, fourth tone.
Right. So it's not 不要, it's actually 不要.
Yeah. So yao is a verb similar to xiang. We learned that word before to express to desire or to want something, right?
Right.
But the yao has a slightly stronger tone here.
Right.
So literally, this phrase means don't want.
Don't want.
And that sounds rude maybe in English, but it's acceptable in Chinese to just say
Right.
不要.
Yes.
Okay, so now there might still be the case that you might feel it's a bit too direct, just saying 不要. Like the person in our dialogue, if you want to be a little bit more polite, you can add a little thanks onto the end, right, Victor?
Right.
So what would that sound like?
You notice the person in the dialogue says 谢谢.
Yeah.
So you can add that into the end and you can say 不要,谢谢.
That's right. But the fact is, if you say that, they might think you could be convinced. So be forewarned, you might have to like throw in a few more 不要s before you're done. They're very persistent. Okay, well, let's look at the grammar section.
Now we learned about the word for to taste, which is 尝. But in this dialogue, we see in a little group, as in 尝一尝.
Right. And this is something that we see in Chinese where sometimes the verb is reduplicated. And basically what it does is just kind of soften the tone a little bit. It kind of changes it from a command like taste it to just have a little taste or come try it.
Kind of like a suggestion
Yeah.
instead.
And then one thing of note is that the E that you heard in the middle between the two verbs is actually optional.
Right. So you can either say 尝一尝 or sometimes people just say 尝尝.
Right. And so, Victor, what are some other verbs that you will commonly see take this pattern?
Well, another really common one is to take a look.
Right.
And to look in Chinese is 看. So you probably hear a lot of vendors say this also, 看一看 or 看看.
Is this the same as the 看一下 that we learned last time?
Right, exactly. It's
Just
the
another
same.
way to soften the tone. Kind of like colloquial Chinese. Okay, now there's another grammar point we can learn, which is quite useful. It came in the form of the invitation from the seller to come. Remember, 来 means to come.
And for the second time, the vendor said 来吧.
Yeah, the second invitation he gave was beyond come. It was 来吧. Now, what is this ba? Is it really important, Victor? What does this
Yeah.
ba do?
It's kind of just a little particle in the end,
It always comes at the end of a sentence.
By putting this ba onto the end of the sentence, it kind of just turns it into a suggestion.
That's right. And the ba just is a neutral tone. So it's pronounced very lightly.
Right.
And when you hear 来吧, basically it just means, hey, how about you come over here?
Right.
Makes it more of a suggestion. Okay, well, for an example, let me think of another ba sentence, Victor, since I like the ba so much. I even use it in English now. Okay, I know. Here's a very common one. How about the one for Let's go. I'm suggesting to you.
Sure. Well, go in Chinese is 走.
Yeah, to go or to leave.
Right, 走. So you can say 走吧.
Yeah, it's very common. So let's go is 走吧.
走吧.
Third tone, neutral tone.
Yes.
How about, here's another famous 吧 sentence. 好吧.
Yes, 好吧. So 好 means good. And when you say 好吧, it kind of means okay, all right.
Yeah, it's kind of like you just want to see if someone agrees.
Right.
Or you're just making a suggestion, be like, is it all right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's time for us to 走吧.
Yes.
That about does it for today. Before you go, though, we want to make sure that you know that you can actually test what you just learned. How can you do it, Victor?
Right. With the flashcards that we have in the Learning Center, they're lesson specific, so you can go to the section and memorize the characters for every lesson.
So have another listen to the dialogue, and for now, we will say 再见.
再见.
来，尝一尝。
不要，谢谢。
来吧，很好吃。
我不要。你好，
大家好。
Chinese Class 101.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to ChineseClass101.com. I am Amber.
大家好，我是 Victor.
And this is our Absolute Beginner series, Season 1, continuing Lesson 16. And we're changing to a new subject now, Victor. Also essential, but the next few lessons are going to be about getting around.
Oh, very important also.
Yes. And today is...
Finding the subway.
Yes, one of the major ways to get around
Right.
in a Chinese city. Definitely. The bigger cities all have subways. But before you can get on a subway, the first step is to find one. And you might need help with this when you're in a
Right.
new place. So today you're going to learn how to ask someone. So in this lesson, you'll learn how to ask directions to the subway stop.
This conversation takes place on the street.
And it's between a tourist and a local. Now, we're going to listen to the conversation, but just before we do, we want to remind the basic and premium subscribers that if you have a 3G phone, what can you do, Victor?
You can see the lesson notes in your favorite browser on the phone
That's right.
as you're listening to this class.
Which helps a lot to see something visual while you listen. So stop by ChineseClass101.com to find out more.
Yeah, just not when you're driving.
Yeah. But now we'll listen to the conversation.
请问地铁在哪儿？
在前面，
远吗？
不远。
One more time, a bit slower.
请问地铁在哪儿？
在前面，
远吗？
不远。
One more time with English.
请问地铁在哪儿？
Excuse me, where is the subway?
在前面，
Up ahead.
远吗？
Is it far?
不远。
Not far. Oh, Victor, he's on the brink of his first Chinese subway experience. We all remember our first time.
Sometimes you kind of have to mentally prepare yourself
Yes, to get up close and intimate with people on the subway.
with hundreds, if not thousands of people.
Yes. And you don't really think about these things, but there's a lot of things to learn. Like you have to hone your subway skills when you're in China, or you might not be able to get out at your stop.
Yes. It'll be an experience on its own right.
Yeah. But first you have to find one. So let's break down the vocab for this lesson so you can see how that is done.
And now, the vocab section.
请问
May I ask?
请问请问地铁
Subway.
地铁地铁在
At.
在前面
In front.
前面远
Far.
远远
Okay, so let's take a closer look at the usage for some of these words and phrases. So the first thing you're going to have to do is, like in our dialogue, get someone's attention, right, Victor?
Right.
I mean, there's definitely no shortage of people on the street to ask. However, things move very quickly.
Yes.
So you're going to have to find a way to jump in there really quick to get someone's attention.
So a good attention getter is the phrase we hear in the beginning of our dialogue. 请问. 请 is a third tone and 问 is fourth tone.
Yeah, and remember we learned that 请 means please, 问 means to ask. So this phrase literally means please ask.
Right.
Who could say no to that? If someone came up to you in the street, please ask.
Yes, please, may I ask?
Yeah, so literally it's like, can I ask you something? And you can use this 请问 to preface almost any question. It's kind of a way to be polite.
Yes. Like I can say, 请问 Amber, 你几岁?
No, that's not polite at all, Victor. You cannot ask
People
that.
will probably ask that in China too. Like,
Yeah,
it's
actually,
very-
it's not impolite in China. So
Right.
yes, we'll give you
a
that.
little cultural context.
We might not give
there.
you the answer, but we'll give you that. But yeah, and another good way to use 请问 is if you say want to ask your teacher a question, maybe in class or your tutor. What could you say?
You can say, 老师,请问 blah blah blah, whatever.
Whatever the question is. Yeah, and we heard there the word for teacher being 老师, third tone, first tone.
And now, next, the key to everything, the word for subway, of course.
Crucial.
地铁,地铁. D is fourth tone and 铁 is third tone.
Yeah, and those characters, literally, what do they mean, Victor? It's, of course, very logical.
Yeah, it means, well, 地 means the ground,
Mhm.
and 铁 means iron.
Right, so it's kind of like railway, iron in the ground.
Yeah,
地铁.
ground metal.
Yeah. And then we have the key word, our first direction word, which is in our dialogue today, which means up ahead. What was that?
The word for up ahead or in front is 前面,前面. 前 is second tone and 面 is fourth tone.
Right. And we're going to talk a little bit more about directions in the grammar section in a moment.
But one last question of our direction giver, and that was 远吗?
Okay, so now we hear the ma at the end. We know that's our question marker particle, right?
Right.
So that gives us a hint that this is a question. Now the word yuan means what?
Means far, and it's third tone, 远吗?
So yuanma means, is it far?
Is it far? Very simple.
Mm-hmm. True Chinese fashion. Just two words. Far question? Good. And then what is the very reassuring answer we get?
It was 不远. Remember the 不 makes it negative, so we know it's not far.
Right. Good news. And on that note, we can just throw in something extra here. If you wanted to go so far as to say it's near, what's the word for near, Victor?
It's 近, 近, and it's fourth tone.
It's grammar time.
Okay, so now we'll go to the grammar section and have some more on these direction words.
So we learned a word for in front, and as we heard in this dialogue, to tell someone the location of something, you use the preposition 在 in front, which is kind of like at in English.
Right. So for up ahead, we heard him say 在前面, and the tone for 在 is fourth tone. Okay, now what about some other direction words, Victor? Because maybe the subway is behind us.
Right.
What would you do then?
In that case, you can say 在后面. 在后面, 后, fourth tone, is the opposite of 前, and it means behind or back.
Yeah, 后面, behind you. Now, notice in both of these, to talk about a specific location, we use the preposition 在 plus the actual location word, which was in one case 前 being front, 后 being back. And then we hear this location word combined with 面. Basically, 面, fourth tone, it means like a side of something or a dimension. So when we say 前面, it's just basically saying like up ahead,
Right,
like that location.
like the front region.
Yeah,
the
the
back
front region. That's right. Okay, now imagine maybe we want to say something is on the left. How would we say that, Victor?
The word for left is 左, 左, and it's third tone. So that is our location word. Now for the directions left and right, when giving directions, we don't combine it with 面. Instead, we say 左边 for left side.
And the bian more means like side. So when it's your left or your right, you don't use mian, you use bian.
Right.
So if we wanted to say right side then, Victor, what's the word?
The word for right is 右, 右, and it's fourth tone, so right side is 右边.
Right. So if you wanted to specifically say the subway is on the left, we want to use 在, right? So I would say 地铁在哪儿 and say it's on the left. What would you say?
You can say 在左边,
And if it was on the right?
在右边.
Great. So easy. So there are some direction words for you. So let's review, Victor. In front?
在前面,
Behind?
在后面,
On the left?
在左边,
On the right?
在右边.
Yes. So we'll leave you with that today. And me and Victor will sleep well, peaceful with the thought that our listeners are not wandering around lost, hopefully. We hope. So that just about does it for today. You're going to listen to the dialogue one more time. But before we go, we want to remind premium members that there is a review track that you can use to review this lesson. So basically, it gives you the vocab and phrases we learned today with a pause as you listen. So it gives you a chance to repeat the words out loud to try and recall them to mind.
So until next time.
Yep, we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, 再见.
再见.
请问地铁在哪儿？
在前面，
远吗？
不远。
你好，
大家好，
Chinese Class 101.
大家好，我是 Victor.
And I'm Amber. Welcome back to ChineseClass101.com. This is our Absolute Beginner series, Season 1. Today is Lesson 17, also, again, about getting around.
Right. Today we're going above ground.
Yes.
Last time we were underground and the subway, and this time we're going to talk about the buses.
Right. And we're going to find out how to ask.
Does this bus go to wherever you're trying to go?
So the star of the dialogue is the bus. So you're going to hop on the bus with us today. And in this lesson today, you're going to learn how to ask about bus destinations.
This conversation takes place at a bus stop.
And it's between two strangers. So let's have a listen to the conversation.
到大望路吗？
不到，7路车道
车票多少钱？
2块钱。
重复一次，慢速。
One more time, a little slower.
到大望路吗？
不到，7路车道
车票多少钱？
2块钱。
重复一次，加英文翻译。
One more time with the English.
到大望路吗？
Does this go to Dawan Road?
不到，7路车道
No, it doesn't. Bus number 7 goes there.
车票多少钱？
How much is the bus fare?
2块钱。
2 renminbi. Okay, now, it might seem daunting to take a Chinese bus because there are so many routes and it's kind of chaotic. But I think there's some really good things to know about Chinese buses, Victor. And one thing that's really helpful is they announce the bus stops ahead of time. And sometimes the newer buses, there's even a screen that will say it in Pinyin and English what the stop is.
Very fancy.
Yes. And the other thing I love is the ticket lady. Do you know the ticket lady, Victor?
The lady, they always have like a bag in front
Yes. The ticket lady always gets the seat, too. Best job in the world. But yeah, it's kind of personal touch to bus ticking because some of the older bus routes, you know, the lady will come around. She remembers everyone that didn't pay. Like, I don't know how she can do it. It's amazing.
It's a career.
Yeah, she takes it seriously. Okay, so that you can get on the bus, let's take a look at the vocab for this lesson.
And now, the vocab section.
到
To arrive.
到南京
Nanjing.
南京路
Road.
路 7
7,
7 7车
vehicle,
车车车票
bus ticket,
车票车票多少
how much, how many,
多少多少钱
money,
钱钱两
2,
两两块
measure word for money,
块块
Let's have a closer look at the usage for some of these words and phrases. So today we're going to start out with a mini number lesson, although I don't like numbers so much. But the numbers make a little cameo in our dialogue today, so I think it's about time.
So we'll start with numbers 1 through 10.
Right, so Victor's going to do the honors and read out the numbers 1 to 10. So I'll say the English first, and then Victor will tell you what it is in Chinese. 1,
1
2,
2
3,
3
4,
4
5,
5
6,
6
7,
7
8,
8
9,
9
10.
10
Yeah, and for the tones for all those, you can check out the lesson notes. We'll have it all there for you. Okay, enough about numbers, onto other things. Hopefully all of you have been acquainted with the numbers before. But today we're going to learn another thing in the dialogue that you're going to get a lot of use of, and that is the very first word that we hear, which is dao.
Right. 到 and its fourth tone.
Yeah, and basically it means to arrive at, in the case here, the way that it's used. So the question we have in the dialogue is...
到南京路吗?
Right. So the last part of that sentence that we hear after the dao is the road or the area that our bus taker is looking for. So in this case, it's a really famous street in Shanghai. What were they looking for, Victor?
南京路.
Right.
Nanking Road.
Yeah. So Nanjing is the name of the road. So Nanjing is the name of the road. And then the word for road is...
路 and its fourth tone.
Right. So you put it all together, and basically this question literally is, does this arrive at Nanjing Lu?
到南京路吗?
Right. So that is how you ask, does this bus go to Nanjing Lu in Chinese?
We'll discuss a little more about the structure of the sentence in the grammar section. But for now, while we're on the subject of lus in Chinese, I think we can also visit some streets.
Yes. So the word for road is lu. Now, what's the word for street?
It's 街 and its first tone.
Right. So Nanjing Lu is a pretty famous street in Shanghai. What's a famous street that you can say in China, Victor?
Oh, very famous. Probably one of the most famous ones is Chang'an in Beijing.
Right. Chang'an, that's where Forbidden City is, right?
Right. It's right in front of Tiananmen Square.
Yeah. Okay, so remember a couple streets if you want to go see them. Nanjing Lu in Shanghai.
And Chang'an in Beijing.
Yeah. Okay, so now we are waiting with bated breath, of course, for the answer to the question, 到南京路吗?
And of course, as we know, you use the verb to answer in either the affirmative or the negative.
Yeah, the main verb of the sentence, which in this case is...
Bad news, 不到.
Right, so the main verb was to arrive, 到. We hear the bu means no.
No, it doesn't go there. However, it did point the person to another bus.
What a great, helpful person.
Yes.
So he gets another suggestion, and in this, we will learn how to say bus route or bus number.
The person says, 七路车道.
Right. So, as we just learned the numbers, we hear again the number 7.
七
Right. First tone. And then again, we hear the word for road.
路
Right. And then the word for bus,
车.
which really just means vehicle in this case. It's kind of a
Right.
shortened form.
Mm-hmm.
But you put it all together,
Say 七路车.
that means bus 7, bus number 7, basically.
Right.
And then to say goes there, you just use 到 again.
Yeah, so 七路车道.
Yeah, basically then bus number 7 arrives there.
Yes.
Makes sense. Okay, so to get there now, there might be another question you might have to ask, which was also in the dialogue. You're going to need to know the bus fare. So sometimes in China, different routes, depends on how far you go, you have to pay different amounts, right, Victor?
Yes.
So maybe you want to ask someone how much is the bus. How would you do that?
And to do that, you can use the term 车票. 车票. 车 is first tone and 票 is fourth tone.
So we'll talk about how to ask how much something costs in the grammar section, but for now, arm yourself with this word, the word for bus ticket or bus fare.
Right.
车票. And also, the money side of things will come in our grammar section too. A very useful bit for us to know.
But just as a side note, this word 票 can be used for many kinds of other tickets as well.
That's right. Like rock concert tickets, Victor.
Like a train ticket
yes.
will be 火车票. A plane ticket will be 飞机票. You can basically just put the type of the ticket in front of the word for that particular kind of ticket.
Yeah, 票. Okay, now on to a little bit of grammar.
It's grammar time.
Okay, first a quick little mention about sentence structure in Chinese. Now, remember we had a simple little question in the first line of our dialogue, which was?
到南京路吗?
Right.
Now, when the subject is known, as we can tell in this scenario, the speakers are obviously at a bus stop. So you can leave out the subject.
Yeah, so here's the key. In that sentence, they didn't say at the beginning, does this bus go, right? It really isn't necessary in Chinese. You can just say, because you're there at the bus stop, obviously you're asking about the bus. You just say, 到南京路吗? So Chinese, you don't have to be so long-winded, basically, is what we're trying to say.
Much more direct in English.
Yeah.
In many ways.
If the subject is known, you can drop it. And you can just simply say, go Nanjing Road, ? That's it.
And this does not sound direct or rude in Chinese at all.
If you try and flower it up too much, sometimes you get people
Sounds
confused.
really weird.
Yeah, it's too weird. Okay, good.
The other important thing we learned in this dialogue was about money.
Of course, money is very important. And also in China, you better have your wits about you about money. You have to try and learn this lesson well so you don't get mixed up and pay too much or something, right?
So here's a little lesson on money.
Okay, so first of all, a word for money.
Well, the official word for money is 钱, and then second tone.
Right. And we did learn about the many ways of expressing money in lesson 10. So we're going to just do a little review of that, just to refresh everyone's memory.
The formal word for the Chinese renminbi is sometimes yuan.
Right. So the currency is called renminbi, but it's often referred to maybe in a more formal way as yuan in Chinese.
Right. That's kind of like the unit word for
Yeah.
that.
Renminbi is too long to say, let's face it. Okay. But there is another way that we often hear people referring to money, and that is by completely dropping the word qian, the word for money, not using yuan, but instead just using kind of like the Chinese equivalent of a buck, which is the measure word for money, kuai.
Kuai.
Now, remember, measure words are used when we're enumerating an amount of something. Lesson 10, we had an introduction to them. So you'll often hear just people refer to an amount of money as the number and then kuai.
Yeah.
Just like in our dialogue, what did we hear today, Victor? How much was something?
In our dialogue, the ticket was worth 2块钱.
Yeah, so you can either say 2块钱 or you can just say 2块.
Yes.
It's basically kind of like just saying 2 pieces of money.
Yes, very simple.
Yeah, and it's kind of good that we brought up the number 2, Victor, because there is kind of something weird about the number 2 in Chinese. When that is, well, there's kind of 2 words for the number 2.
Right. And depending on the situation sometimes.
Yeah, so there's 2 forms of the number 2. Victor, what are they? The one we heard today was 两.
两. The other one is 二.
Right, so 两 is third tone, 二 is fourth tone. Now, what's the difference between when we use them? I can explain if you want.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so when you have a number 2 that is enumerating an amount of something, for example, in our dialogue, an amount of money, we will use 两. So we heard 2块钱, not 2块钱. That sounds weird. So basically that's it. But if you're just counting or something, you just use 2.
Right. Now, so all this money talk, we haven't even told you how to ask how much something costs. So that is the next thing. How much money is it in Chinese?
Very important.
It's 多少钱?
Broken down, first we have the word for how much.
多少? And 多 is first tone, 少 is third tone.
Yeah, and interestingly, 多 means more, 少 means less.
Yes.
So when you say 多少, it's kind of like more or less, which is it? That means how much. And then, of course, it's followed by the word for money because you're asking how much money.
So altogether, 多少钱?
Great. Everyone is totally prepared to do anything now. Hit the markets. Okay, well, that just about does it for today. We'll have another listen to the dialogue, but first we want to remind any of our premium members to subscribe to the premium feed. If you don't know, it's one of our most powerful Web.2 features to date, Victor.
Right, the premium feed gives you the power to easily and effortlessly get all of the content.
Yeah, it's audio files, the PDFs, the videos, everything we have can be downloaded through iTunes when you have it at the premium feed.
Yeah, it's really good, huh?
Yeah, so if you want to test it out, even if you're not a premium member, you can get a sample feed at ChineseClass101.com. Go check it out. And we'll listen one more time to the dialogue. And for now, Victor and I will say
再见.
再见.
到大望路吗？
不到，西路车道，
车票多少钱？
2块钱。
你好，
大家好，
Chinese Class 101.
大家好，我是 Victor.
Hey, everybody, I'm Amber, and welcome back to ChineseClass101.com. This is our Absolute Beginner series, Season 1, Lesson 18.
Yes, and we're continuing with the getting around section of
Yes.
this series.
Yes, and this is a very important lesson. How do I get home? You never know. You might end up
Right.
somewhere and you need to ask someone's help to
Right.
find your way back.
And we've taught you the words to send you out, basically, to go wherever you want to go, but now you have to get home.
Yeah, and I think probably you're going to be having lots of late nights out with your friends singing KTV, so this will get you home in one piece. So today's dialogue, you will learn to talk about taxis and subways, and also distance, if something's far or near.
The conversations between two friends as they leave dinner.
Yeah, and just before we listen to it, we just want to remind everyone if they are listening on an iPod or an iTouch, iPhone, there's a bonus feature. That is, you just click the center button of the iPod or tap the screen of the iTouch or iPhone, and you can see the lesson notes for this lesson while you listen.
Right.
Okay, so let's listen to the conversation.
我怎么回家？
你可以坐出租车，
这儿有地铁站吗？
地铁站有点远。
重复一次，慢速。
One more time, a little slower.
我怎么回家？
你可以坐出租车，
这儿有地铁站吗？
地铁站有点远。
重复一次，加英文翻译。
One more time with the English.
我怎么回家？
How do I get home?
你可以坐出租车，
You can take a taxi.
这儿有地铁站吗？
Is there a subway station around here?
地铁站有点远。
The subway station is a little far away. So I do find, Victor, that in, for example, Shanghai, there is a lot of subway lines, but it's true, the subway stops are quite far away. So sometimes taking a taxi is the easier and a cheap option.
Right, it's not that expensive at all.
Yeah, nothing compared to other big cities' taxi fares. So here, this dialogue would give you a couple options to use. So let's take a look at the vocabulary for this lesson.
And now, the vocab section.
怎么
How?
怎么回
To return.
回家
Home. Family.
家可以
may, can.
可以，可以。坐，
To sit.
坐，坐。出租车，
Taxi.
出租车，出租车。这儿，
Here.
这儿，这儿。有，
To have.
有，有。地铁，
Subway.
地铁，地铁。站，
Station.
站，站。一点儿，
A little.
一点儿，一点儿。远，
Far.
远，远。
Okay, let's have a closer look at the usage for some of these words and phrases. Let's start with home, Victor.
Sure.
Home is where the heart is.
Yep.
How do you say home in Chinese? I want to go home.
Well, 家 is the word for home. So 家 is first tone, and it's actually also the word for family.
So
Yeah.
that kind of makes sense in a way.
Right.
Home, family, where the heart is.
And if you actually look at if you are looking at the lesson notes right now, if you look at the character, it's kind of like a family. Because the top part is kind of like a roof, and the bottom part actually means pig. Not to say it's for pig, but that's where the meat is.
Or maybe if your house is like a pigsty, there's a roof with a pig.
So it's food, so where people
Yeah.
eat, and on top there's a roof, so that's what home is.
Yeah. Okay, so if you wanted to go home, how would you say that?
We just use the word for to return in front of home, which is 回, and a second tone.
So to return home or to go home is 回家, put it together.
Correct. 回家. And we can also use this formula to talk about returning to other places too. Like after you have been in China for a while and then you're going back home, you're returning to your own country. You just put 回 in front of the word for country, 国. So you have 回国.
So just returning to your country means like I'm going back home to where I came from.
回国 is very simple.
Yeah. Okay, so I think the best way to get home is the taxi option.
Right.
So let's start with that. How would you say take a taxi in Chinese?
You can say 坐出租车. 坐 is fourth tone and it means to sit. And the phrase for taxi is 出租车. 出 is first tone. 租 is first tone and 车 is also first tone.
Right. So first of all, the verb in Chinese that you use to say to take a taxi is actually the same verb as the word for to sit,
Right.
the same character. So you can 坐 a taxi, which means to take a taxi or literally sit a taxi.
Right.
We also use the same verb when we're talking about taking a bus or a subway, right, Victor?
Right. So you can sit a bus or you can sit the subway.
And it's true. If you're lucky, you'll get to sit. You might be standing the bus. Good. So if you wanted to say to take a bus, how would you say that, Victor?
You can say 坐公交车. Well, 公交车 is the phrase for bus and all three characters are first tone.
Good. Okay. So now back to the word for taxi. Literally, let's break this down because it's kind of interesting. It literally means rent out car
Right.
for a taxi.
Yeah.
So in China, most people don't have their own cars. So definitely anytime, anywhere, you're going to see taxis flying by. Only thing is, word of warning, if it's a rainy day, sometimes it's very, very difficult to get a
Right.
taxi. Sometimes I've waited like 45 minutes before.
Now, have you been to situations where the taxi drivers are kind of pick and choose customers? They don't want to go to certain places.
It's true.
And you're just like,
the ball's in their court at that point.
It's really frustrating because I think I'm paying. I'm trying to go
know.
places, but they don't take you.
Yeah. So just as a side option, you might, in these kinds of situations, want to take the subway. So we'll give you the option for that as well.
So remember the word for subway was 地铁.
Yeah, we learned that in lesson 11.
Yeah, and to remind everyone, 地 is fourth tone, 铁 is third tone. Well, when you want to be even more specific, you of course need to find the subway stop, which is 地铁站. And 站 being the word for to stand, actually, so I guess it kind of makes sense, they call the stop a 站.
Yeah, fourth tone. And actually, this applies to how we just learned the word for bus, because a bus stop also uses the word 站 in it. So, Victor, what is the word for bus stop?
The bus stop will be 公交车站.
Right, that's pretty long. Is there a short version of that? Could you just say 车站?
Yeah, you can say
I think
that.
I heard people say that,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so next in the dialogue, we hear kind of bad news that the subway stop is a little far.
Right.
So do you remember the word for far, everybody? We learned it in a previous lesson.
It's 远.
Yep.
远.
And just for good measure, what's the word for near?
近. 近.
Yeah, fourth tone. Okay, it's grammar time.
It's grammar time.
So we have lots of good grammar today.
Well, first off, we'll learn another very important question word, which is the word for how. And it's 怎么. 怎么. It's a third tone and neutral tone.
Yes. So maybe if you wanted to say, how do I do something, you can make a sentence like the one in our dialogue. So let's listen to the one in our dialogue that used 怎么 and notice the word order.
我怎么回家?
Right. 我怎么回家? Let's break it down. To directly translate that to English, it would be I how return home. So something to take note of is that the how comes after the subject, not like English where it would come first.
Right.
So just so that we can hear it in a few more sentences to get a better sense of it, Victor, can you give us maybe another example of a 怎么 phrase?
Sure. Here's a really useful how phrase. You can use it for directions. You can ask 怎么走? The word for to walk or to go is 走. So you're basically saying, how do I walk or how do I go?
Yeah, 怎么走? So interestingly, you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute, the how is coming first here, 怎么走? But actually, it's because the subject is omitted.
Right.
Really, you're saying like, 我怎么走? How do I go?
Right.
But in Chinese, when the subject is known, it's okay to just leave it off.
Right.
So remember this phrase, 怎么走? It's a really good way to ask directions. You could just basically put the place you want to go in front and say 怎么走 after.
Right.
Okay, so now also in our grammar today, we get the chance for a little review. Now, remember we learned before how to express existence in Chinese, which means basically how to say there is something somewhere. So we hear another example of this kind of sentence in the dialogue today.
Yeah. Remember, to express existence in Chinese, we use the verb to have, which is 有.
Right, third tone. So in the dialogue today, the person wants to know, is there a subway stop here or around here?
So in Chinese, we say 这儿有地铁站吗?
Right, which is literally here, have, subway stop, and then question mark, which is our ma word.
Right. 这儿有地铁站吗?
Right, is there a subway stop here?
Yeah. And of course, as we know, as Amber said earlier, the subway stops are a little bit further apart in China than some other places generally. So our next word comes in very handy.
Yep, the answer to the question, is there a subway stop here, is, in this case, that it's a little far away. So we know the word for far is
远.
but how do we say it's a little far? Well, we heard it in the dialogue. They said
有点儿远.
Right. So to say something is a little or somewhat something, you basically just combine yo, again, our verb to have.
Right.
It's a handy little verb, plus 点儿, plus the adjective, which in this case was far. So to say something was a little far, it was
有点儿远.
right. Now here's a side tip. Again, Chinese likes to give you options to make things shorter. Okay, so this is one way of saying that something's a little far. Actually, it's kind of the shortened form. You can also use a longer form, which sometimes you'll hear people use. Don't get confused. But they add the E inside. How does that sound, Victor?
有一点儿.
Yeah.
有一点儿远.
That's right. So sometimes people just say 点儿, and it means a little. Sometimes
Yeah.
people say the full word, which is actually 一点儿.
It's almost exactly like the word bit in English.
Yeah.
A bit.
Exactly.
And sometimes you say bit, whatever. So 有一点儿. 有, as we know, is third tone. 一 is first tone, but here because of the tone change rule, it's fourth tone. And 点儿 is third tone.
Yeah, and actually now that I think about it, Victor, there's even another way because some people don't add the R on the end. They just say 一点.
Yeah, 有一点.
Yeah.
Probably more in the South.
Yeah.
where
So you
people
might
don't
hear
use the
all
R.
these different options. Don't get confused. It's all the same word, we promise. Okay, so let's put this into a real life example. Maybe, Victor, I want to know if stinky tofu is very smelly. So I would ask you, is stinky tofu smelly? How would you answer?
Sure, we can say 有一点儿臭.
Cho is the word for stinky.
For stinky is smelly, and his fourth tone is 臭.
Yeah, so I think you're being very kind to the
I think
tofu
so too. I
by
think we're just
saying 有一点儿.
we're just for the sake of teaching 有一点儿, but if you had real stinky tofu, it's really
It's
stinky.
more than a little stinky. Okay, well, what if we wanted to describe today's lesson? This is maybe more accurate. Was today's lesson difficult?
Not so much. So
Maybe-
I can just
yeah,
say
maybe a little.
有一点儿难,有一点儿难.
So nan is the word for difficult.
Yes.
有一点难, or you could say 有一点难, depends on your accent.
Right. So
Both work.
something like, not too bad, just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, well, that just about does it for today. We're going to let you guys listen to the dialogue one more time. But just before we go, we're going to tell you premium members, don't forget to try out the review track. It's in the premium section of the website, the Learning Center, and also in the iTunes feed. And basically, it gives you the vocabulary and phrases that we learned in today's lesson, followed by a pause in which you can repeat back the words to try and aid your memory in memorizing them.
Right. It's a very good way to get really good very fast.
Yeah. So we'll let you listen to the dialogue one more time. And for now, we will say 再见.
再见.
我怎么回家？
你可以坐出租车，
这儿有地铁站吗？
地铁站有点远。
你好，
大家好，
Chinese Class 101.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to ChineseClass101.com. I'm Amber.
大家好,我是 Victor.
And today is our Absolute Beginner series, Season 1. Today's lesson is Lesson 19.
Yeah, and continuing with getting around, today we're going to teach you I want to go here.
Yeah, how to tell a taxi driver where you want to go.
All right.
And Victor, you know what else? Everyone's going to be able to use the write the address down on a piece of paper technique to its full capacity today.
It's all connected.
Yes, by
Yeah,
learning
lessons.
today's dialogue.
Right.
It's going to come in very handy. So in this lesson, you'll learn how to tell a taxi driver where you want to go.
This conversation takes place in a taxi.
Yeah, and obviously between the driver and the passenger. So before we listen to the dialogue, we just want to remind everybody that they can comment on our website and ask questions.
Right.
It's kind of a really good way to interact with other learners and also us as the teachers. If you have any questions, things you want to share, we'll definitely get back to you. So come there and be part of the community of Chinese Class
It's
101.
all about community building.
Making friends, making pengyos.
Through Chinese, that's what it's all about, right?
That's right. Okay, so let's take a listen to the conversation then.
你想去哪儿？
我想去学院路，
什么路？
看这儿。
哦，我知道了，学院路。好的。
重复一次,慢速.
One more time, a little slower.
你想去哪儿？
我想去学院路，
什么路？
看这儿。
哦，我知道了，学院路。好的。
重复一次,加英文翻译.
One more time with the English.
你想去哪儿？
Where do you want to go?
我想去学院路，
I want to go to Huaihai Road.
什么路？
What road?
看这儿。
Look here.
哦，我知道了，学院路。好的。
Oh, I know. Huaihai Road. Okay. See how easy? When you show the paper,
Yeah,
all your problems melt away.
that's it. Hopefully the handwriting is good.
Yeah. So it sounds like we're ending up at Huaihai Road. Very
Yeah.
famous street in Shanghai.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, lots of sort of shopping, and it's kind of in the French concession, so a lot of sort of old European style buildings. It's pretty cool.
Okay. Sounds like a good destination.
Okay, so let's look at some of the vocabulary so that we can get there.
And now, the vocab section.
去
To go,
去想
would like, to want,
想哪儿
where,
哪儿路
road,
路什么
what,
什么看
to look,
看这儿
here,
这儿知道
to know.
知道
Okay, let's take a closer look at the usage for some of these words and phrases. Okay, well, first we'll teach you the word for telling the driver to look. Well, it could be to like look for someone, look out for someone, I guess. But in this case, you want them to look at your address.
Yeah.
I guess maybe you want them to look at the road. Maybe you should do this when they're stopped.
Stop talking.
But either way, you can use this verb to tell someone to look. What verb is that, Victor?
It is 看 and it's fourth tone.
Yeah, it means to look or to see. So the way that you do this, that probably works best, is you're kind of probably going to be in the back seat and there's that barrier with the taxi. So you can kind of yell and point at the paper, kan jar, like we heard in the dialogue, right?
Right.
And I find, Victor, that there is somewhat a sense of relief on the driver's face generally when he sees you do have a piece of paper, especially when you're a foreigner.
Instead of trying to make out what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
Well, now he sees the paper, gets what you're saying, and you may hear him say something like he does in our dialogue. He says, "Oh, 我知道了."
Right. So first of all, the O doesn't need much translation. It's just O. Okay. It's one of the few words the same in English and Chinese.
And the next part is 我知道了. We hear the word for to know, which is 知道. And 知 is first tone, 道 is fourth tone. And the la here in the end is just a particle that you will learn more about later. But for now, just remember it as a phrase. In fact, you can just say 知道, and that's enough too.
Yeah, so you can either say 我知道了 or 知道 or 知道了. It's kind of just an acknowledgement here.
So that must be a big relief when you
Yes.
hear the driver say, "Oh, I know."
Listen for those words, and then you'll know he's saying, "Oh, okay, I know,
Yeah, I know where you're going.
Yeah.
And we have the taxi driver come up with another great acknowledgement expression as well, one you'll hear quite often, indeed, and that is 好的.
Yeah, I like that expression. Kind of like all right or okay.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just the word good, 好, plus the particle de.
It's grammar time.
Okay, so today's grammar is a little review lesson for us all.
And this covers some of the things we've learned up to now in this series.
Yeah, in this Absolute Beginner series. So first of all, let's go back and remember how to express desire or to want.
Very important.
Yeah, in the case of our dialogue, they wanted to go to Huaihai Lu.
Yes, they used 想, third tone, and it means would like.
Yeah, and then they used the verb for to go because they wanted to go somewhere, which is
去. It's fourth tone. And the pattern is 我想去. And then you can add the location or the place you like to go.
right. So it's literally I would like to go and then blank wherever you want to go. So I could say, maybe I'm here in New York. I could say 我想去中国
Yeah.
means I would like to go to China.
Good. So in this dialogue, we also learned another where question. Remember that in Chinese, questions asking the location of something, the where or 哪儿 or 哪里 comes at the end instead of the beginning of the sentence.
Right. So in English, of course, we say, where would you like to go? But in Chinese, we would say,
It's a little different. You say 你想去哪儿?
you would like to go where?
Right.
Yeah. And also, don't forget in this dialogue, we also heard the word for what in Chinese.
什么?
Mm.
什么?
So, for example, when the taxi driver wanted to know what road it was, he just said,
什么路?
right.
So most times when asking a question using 什么, the 什么 comes at the end, as we heard in earlier lessons. For example, 你想吃什么? However, you can also make a simple what question when you are making an inquiry about a noun. In this case, what road?
Yeah. So if it's just you're asking about a thing, you can just simply say 什么 plus the thing.
什么路?
Right. What
Yeah,
road?
What road?
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of reminds me of another thing you hear using this sort of structure, Victor, quite often in Chinese. Sometimes people, when they don't know what you're talking about or like what's going on, they'll just say 什么东西,
什么东西?
which literally means what thing.
Yeah.
东西 being the word for thing. It's kind of just like basically like, huh? What's that?
Did you hear that in Shanghai a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think in the north it takes on kind of like a different meaning. It's like when you're kind of surprised and can't believe something's happening, just like 什么东西 is like kind of mad
similar.
almost.
Similar.
It's like whatever. I can't believe this happened.
Depends on your tone of voice.
Right.
So it's kind of a side point, but
Yeah.
same structure. You'll hear it. Okay, well, that's about it for this lesson. 好的.
好吧?
But just before we go, make sure everybody, you should take a test. We wouldn't be teachers if
No
we didn't
test.
give you a test. So are you ready to test what you learned today? How can they do it, Victor?
Well, we have this really nice function on our website, and you can use the lesson-specific flashcards in the Learning Center.
Yeah, and basically they have all of the vocab characters that we learned today, and you can quiz yourself and
Right.
try and burn them into your brain.
Yeah, and there's a reason why everyone uses flashcards, because they work.
Yeah.
So do that.
And they're so fun. Okay, Victor, we'll let everyone listen one last time to the dialogue, and we will see you all next time.
Yeah.
再见。
再见。
你想去哪儿？
我想去学院路，
什么路？
看这儿。
哦，我知道了，学院路。好的。